Well, I'd like to welcome you to my 7th instructional video. I've really enjoyed putting these together. They're filmed in my own studio, and I'm here with my pal Jess, who is not only filming, but she's editing, and she's a wonderful director. She comes up with great ideas. In this particular video, or DVD, what we're going to do is my favorite lessons. And over the last few years, I've had 2 lessons that have been very, very successful. The beginners do as well as the people who are advanced. And it's really fun to go out and teach and send everybody home with a beautiful painting that they're very pleased with. Now, in the past, I've worked with the concept of breaking out into a white shape, sort of a commercial idea, but it's one that just seems to work for me. It's something I really enjoy. So taking this concept, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into the idea of working with grapes. Now I've got another video out where we just do the grapes straight. But on this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the concept of breaking out. And not in a perfect rectangle, but in something asymmetrical. Maybe a narrow line, and then another zig and a zag. So what we're working with here is, if you think of this as being the negative, this is the positive. So these are going to be all dark against a light background, and then these can go either way. They can be dark against light or light against dark. But it's a really very exciting concept to work with, and one I think you'll have a great time with. Here's some examples of some other pieces. This one here is focusing mainly in just blue and yellow and green. Very limited palette, but I really like it. If you can imagine this in the right place, it would be a nice decorator piece. And this is another little concept I'm going to work with. This is this idea of the intertwining branches. Last fall I was over in France at this lovely convent, and they had a grape arbor in the backyard, and there were 100-year-old vines, and that was drawn on location looking at the vines, the way they were twisting and turning. It was very exciting. So I'm going to work with that concept today in our demonstration. Here I've been painting these things all these years, and I don't even put branches on them hardly. They're just grapes and leaves. Now I'm into the branches. So this is the evolution. See, that's an old one. That's a new one. So that's an old one. That's an old one. Because now I'm doing the branches too. It's just so fun. Now this is kind of fun. This is the same piece, same colors, very close in range, but here I glued a piece of this fibered enroux over the top. So you can see it sets the color back several values, but it also adds this very soft textural look, very popular. And again, something I really love. I guess I've always liked texture, and now to combine it in a painting is fun. Here you can see another great piece, this time in a very warm dominance versus a cool dominance, and again with the fibered paper on it. Here's one that doesn't have the fibered paper, but here now I was working with the concept of complements. So we've got the purple grapes and the yellow leaves, and then I harmonically went into kind of a turquoise to combine with the violet, because I really like greeny blues and violets together. So that was purposely designed to be purple and yellow. As you can see, some of the leaves absorbed more of the purple and became quite grayed down, but at least the ones at my focal point stayed the intensity I was hoping for. This is, again, going back to a more traditional, just a simple square shape, simple breakouts. So you can make this as complicated or as simple as you'd like. This is the last example I'm going to show. Again, this is a full sheet now. I wouldn't recommend starting with a full sheet. It was amazing how much time it took me to finish this, but it was really fun to do. And this one you can see has some gold spray on it. So when the wax paper and the leaves were on here, I took a can of metallic spray and just did a little bit of psst, 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 spraying right on top of it while it was still wet. And I like some of the golden tones that happen. And then this funny scribbly looking lines that you see, that was done with another gimmicky can of spray you can buy it at almost any store. It's called webbing spray. And I think it adds a nice little touch. I especially like it with the grapes. So we're ready to get started. The size paper that I've chosen is going to be the 1/3 of a sheet. So I've divided my sheet into 1/3. So the final size that I'm going to work with is 1/3, 10 by 22. And generally when I do this, I rip it, the second one, I make the second rip right away, because if I set this aside, sure enough, I'll rip it the wrong way. And what my plan is, I'm going to design the painting on one, and I'm going to paint. Then I'm going to take it off of there and paint in this one. So I'm just going to start by designing with this one. So we're going to start with the major vine coming and weaving its way through the painting. And let's say it also comes down here and goes off the painting. And then, of course, I'm going to have one vine quite big, and they're very gnarly. So we're going to make it kind of thick. Like I say, I'm not sure. There's going to be leaves coming in here too. Maybe this will branch off down here. And then I want to have another vine that's intertwining with this. And where might that come in? It could come on just about anywhere. So I'll have it come over here, twist, go underneath, come over here. It'll go on top this time. Then it'll go underneath this time. Oh, it's got to go on top this time. So now we'll give that some thickness, and I'm going to have this be kind of a skinny little vine. So you can see how much fun that is. Already we've given quite an interesting flavor. And I have with me some leaves. Now these are actual grape leaves that I picked last summer. And the interesting thing is, I put them in a plastic bag, and then I sucked all the air out of them, so they were almost like vacuum sealed, zippered them up, and froze them. And with about 300 leaves, which is how many it takes for me to teach a class, all in there very compactly with all the air out of them. Look at how nice and flat they are. Now if you went to pick these today, if it weren't winter time with the snow cover, let's say you went out and picked these fresh, they would be very difficult to work with because they're very so much moisture in the leaf. They just simply curl and bend, so you don't get good contact. But the frozen leaves are wonderful. So you can see what I'm doing now. I'm actually doing the design using the leaves. And I've got a variety of them, different sizes. Here's a cute little one. Maybe I'll have that. And the leaves actually come off up. They turn up. They don't necessarily hang straight down. You could have a leaf coming off like this and it would actually be correct. So I do want some of these leaves to intersect with the vine, and I want some of them to come off of the vine, and I want some of the leaves to overlap one another. So it's kind of nice just to kind of play around here with what feels comfortable. I think I can get by with one more. It's quite a few. I think that might be enough. Now comes the excitement. Now I'm ready to think about how I'm going to break this up with the shapes. And I think what I'll do is I'll come in here and do a straight line right here. And I think I'll do another one over here. And I'm just kind of making this up. I want some of these leaves to be breaking through the line too. So let's see what happens. Let's go right here. Through a leaf. There we go. It looks crooked. Let's hope it's not crooked. That's looking okay. And I might even continue this line up here. Kind of like this idea. Pull it out a bit, and I think I'll go up. So this is going to remain white paper, white paper. This is going to have the color in it. I want to have like 3 areas that are white. So I've got this corner, this corner. So I think what I'll do is come in here, maybe a little bit lower. This isn't a lot of paper. Of course, ooh, there's a tangent. We can't have that. So I'll go above that a bit. Come in here. Maybe about here. Oh yeah, I like that. And then we'll come up here. So now we have a 3rd white area. Okay, now we're ready for the part that seems to complicate everybody's life, but this is how I've come up with this. I'll take just regular old masking tape, the least expensive kind from just a hardware store, Walmart, they all work. And this is some kind of a no-name one. There isn't even a name on it. But you'll notice how I mitered the corner here. That's important. And I'll just cut a little angle on this one too. Now we'll run that corner up there. And I do want that to overlap. And I'm just going to run this along the edge of my line. And then what I like to do is I like to erase this line. If I can, I guess I got it a little close, but if I can get just a hair under that, I'll erase that line, just because I like to have a nice clean look there. Okay, now this one, we're starting to get a little more complicated. On this one, I'm going to come in fact, I think I'll move this up just a little bit. Turn it a bit. So now I'm going to run a piece of tape until it touches that leaf. And then I'm going to just cut it. That's my breakout. Now I have to go around another corner. You can see we've made this pretty complicated here. Another miter. So I'm going to come up to that corner. Tape down to approximately where the leaf is. Now this time, I'm going to cut the miter at this angle. Start there. And run across. Again, I may have gotten a little close here, but if I can, I'm going to erase some of these extra lines. There, that lightened up a bit. Now we've got this last little corner up here, and I'm going to take a chance that I cut this close enough to be square. See, as it's just that little corner, just to move things ahead a little bit here. So we'll cut this off. In fact, that'll make my painting nice and stationary. I'll just run that down, erase this line and this line. And now one of the most important things that you can do is you need to burnish this. Okay, this next little tidbit of information is really, really important. Often when people use tape, they don't do what we call burnishing. That means you have to take a credit card or some kind of an edge like this and actually burnish this edge. I'm applying quite a bit of pressure right now. And when I do that, I'm assured that I'm going to have a perfect edge. I'm going to do it here, 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 over here, and over here. Now, very important that you do that. And another unfortunate thing that often happens is people will buy this tape. It's called artist tape. It's a white, shiny, very expensive tape. Do not use artist tape. It's absolutely the worst possible tape for kind of a breakout like this, because it will leak. It does not give you the firm hold that you need. So this less expensive tape and burnished with the credit card will have a perfect edge. Okay, so let's kind of reposition these. I often like to pull off these handles. Not handles, they're branches. Make my own branches. So now I'm looking so that they're not all lined up in a row, and I want some of them, in fact, coming off the edge a bit. This is the one that is breaking into my line. This one is overlapping. Try to have at least one overlap. The other thing is, it's nice to have a variety of sizes. You know, I notice I have such a small paper, I'm working with relatively small leaves, but at the same time I have a variety ranging from pretty small to about medium. So now we're ready to start working with the colors. And what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to put my paint out of here. I'm going to put this piece of paper back in position. And I'm going to put the leaves now in the position they are on my painting, because this is like my little model. Okay, before we start painting, we have to prepare by making our grapes. Now, this, I'm sure most of you remember when you were a young kid doing paper dolls. And the truth be known, I never did this as a young kid. I missed that. But anyway, I know that there are people who did it, and this is the way they did it. So you just simply roll this up, and with the scissors, just simply cut out a circular form or an oval form. The grapes come in both of those. And sometimes it's kind of hard to cut them without freeing up the paper there, so you're not dealing with that big long thing. And you can see that when you do this, now you've got a whole bunch of grapes. So just go ahead and do that. So we're ready to now begin wetting the paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply take some nice clean water and wet inside of my tape lines. And the hardest concept for everybody to get across is that they're not supposed to paint out here. Don't paint in these white areas. Now, if you can't remember that, you might want to put tape over the whole thing. Because it's so funny, I tell everybody now, don't paint out there. And they all go, okay. And then I walk around the room and people are painting on that outside area. It's just a natural instinct. Where I have a breakout, notice I'm just going straight across. I'm not painting into that at all. And now I'm going to take my palette. Now my palette is pretty much lined up like a color wheel, and I'm working mostly from transparent primary colors. So when I start painting this, I'm pretty much going to be working with some light colored leaves, and then I'm going to have it contrasted to a dark background. So I'm going to be working with my Aurolian yellow, my Winsor yellow, my quinacridone gold, and I might even put a little hint of some of this orange in it. So I'm going to do most of my leaves in that light color. So I'm going to start with this, and what you do is you put the color on the back of the leaf. And I want to put this color on extremely rich, not watery, extremely rich. And see, I'm using my flat brush. And this flat brush, if I put it at an angle like this, is going to pick up all those veins, only the veins. And then if I want to put some variety here, I'm putting a little gold on them, and maybe just a little hint of some orange too. So this one's ready. So I'm going to place it over in this area here, not over the tape, but I'm going to put it in such a position that it's close to the tape here, and I've got a little opening there. Then I'm just going to press it down, stamp it on there really good. So essentially what we're doing right now is we're creating a stamp. Let's take our next sleeve here, working on the back side. Again, going into these very, very heavily pigmented colors. We're talking lots of color here. Not much water, lots of color. Flat brush at an angle. So I'm putting down my Aurelian yellow first. Then I'm going to come in with some of this quinacridone gold. Add it here, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of the orange, Windsor orange, just to add a little more color here. And I might even go into a Scarlet Lake. This is a very bright orange. Let's do just a little of that too. This is what color they actually change in the fall. And now this is my breakout leaf. So my tape goes from here to here. This is the most difficult thing for people to do. So we're going to position this so that it's not going over the tape, but it's next to the tape edge, and yeah, it's close. Could have done a little better job, but too bad. So I'm just going to do one more, and then we're going to turn the camera off while I complete the rest of these, because it's sort of the idea of scene one, seen them all. So let me repeat one more time. I am using very, very heavy pigments. Not much water, but lots of pigment. Now throughout the painting, as you're working, be sure you keep a fine mister handy. Now this is a mister that has the narrow inner. And of course I don't want to ever get confused. I have a picture of my fine mister on the front here. So I'm going to keep him handy because I'm going to use this throughout the rest of the painting. We're ready now to come with some color. Now my natural instinct is to start with warm colors and then go to the cool colors. Same with I like to go with light to dark. So I'm going to start first of all with some light colors here. And we're going to go around that. Now I'm thinking about how this pattern goes. See, if I go off the top here and touch into the tape line, work my way down here, maybe touch this tape line again. Every time I touch the tape line, I'm providing contrast. Now I might go a little in between, moving across over here, negatively painting around this branch and going off the edge. So I've got a nice glow of the sun coming out. The next thing I'm going to do is come in with some nice warm color. This happens to be my quinacridone coral. It's a beautiful color from Daniel Smith, one I'm in love with. Now if you see any hard edges when you're doing this, get your mister out. So far I haven't seen any. Now I'm identifying the edge here as I'm bumping into it. I'm putting some of this beautiful pinky color right into the yellow, right across, bumping into this edge. But see, some of the yellow I'm leaving pure. So I'm going on top, next to, again I'm going to bump into the edge here and maybe here. And notice what's happening. As I go over the yellow, it's turning into an orange. So by using all primaries, you really get a lot of nice variety. This is good. And I always like to bless the painting too, so we got to have just a few of those little spots. So now this is going to suffice for my underpainting. Now it's time to put our circles down. So these are going to become the grapes. Now as I set these into this little bit of color, you'll notice that you can already see very subtle, very subtle. But what I like to do is I like to put a number of these down first. So these are the ones that are catching the light. Grapes, any object, a flower or anything, catches the light. So this is going to be my lightest ones. And then I'm going to take some color. So I'm going to take a brush, and I've decided to make pinky grapes, pinky purpley grapes. So now I'm going to actually make like a circle here. and I'm going to set this in to that paint. See how easy that is? I'll make another circle here. I'll put this down and it will pick up that color. So this is another form of creating a stamp. This cut piece of wax paper will hold that color into that shade. Now the colors that are the ones I did on the clear paper, I'm just going to paint in between them and the color's going to roll under there a little. But meanwhile it's going to save a highlight. It's going to be light. So I'm going to put another one down here, going off the page. Now I want to get darker. So I'm going to take a deeper red. This is my alizarin crimson. It's a much deeper color. We're getting into the shadow areas now. So we'll make some grapes that are darker. Maybe I'll take that same darker color and go in between, bumping into the edge of the leaf here. So that's how we do it. It's really easy. So let's do another bunch of grapes hanging, oh, let's say over here. So I always put a few down to begin with that are on the light of the paper. Now if you go to put these down and they're not sticking, that means your paper is getting dry. Get out your fine mister, give it a fine little mist of water. We want to keep the paper damp throughout. We don't want it to dry. So I put about 4 of them down there on the light. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint them like a circle, like the size of the grape. And I put this new circle down. Now I am not putting these circles on top of each other. They're only next to each other. Each one of these is separate. They're not overlapping. It probably looks like they're overlapping, but haha, they're not. So now I'm going to get a little bit darker. This is my alizarin. Let's do some more over here, maybe some over here. And it looks like I'm pressing hard when I do this. I'm not. I'm just gently pressing it into this wet surface so that it will get moisture all around. And now I want to paint in between these ones that I laid on top there. There. Now I might even get darker yet. I can go into a little bit of alizarin crimson and add a little French ultramarine blue. My French ultramarine blue fell out of my palette. Well, I'm just going to add a little magenta to it. That's got enough blue in it. What a riot. I was on the road this week teaching at the Catholic school, so I think what happened is my paint fell out somewhere between here and the Catholic school. I'll have to look into that. So now I'm going to take some of this permanent magenta and I'm going to paint that in between here. Get a little darker. And I'm going to paint it down here in between. See, we're going to already starting to build up some nice little darks here and there. And see what's happening? We're starting to create a pattern through the picture here. I think I might even add a few grapes in here. This is my magenta. So I'll just put a few little dark grapes over here. Now we're at the stage where I want to start thinking about connecting this with a pattern of dark movement through it. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about a pattern of dark going through. So we're at the stage now where I want to still save some light of the paper. Very important. Even that little corner is important. And then we're going to design this dark pattern that's going to move throughout the picture. So I'm going to think about that right now. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to work with some soft blues and purples. So I want to get rid of this yellow on the palette. I don't want to get any yellow mixed in with my purples. So this is a little beautiful color I've just added to my palette. It's a manganese blue and it granulates. I like the color a lot. So I'm going to go around, bumping into the edge, going across here. Probably get some greens now. Now here we're going off the page, bumping into this and connecting. Let's come down here with this color. Bump into the grapes, go around the leaves, and maybe bump into the tape. That's important. We want to establish where the tape lines are. See, here's another concept I haven't really discussed with you. When you leave it light, this becomes a lost edge and your eye comes through. But when you get a crisp dark here, this is identification of the edge of the paper. We want that. So we have a lost edge, a found edge, a lost edge, a found edge. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to create some edges that are light and lost. And I haven't really got to my darks yet. We're just getting going here. And maybe this is a leaf hanging down in the background. But mostly what I'm doing is establishing my pattern right now. So I'm going to come over here, identify the edge, cross over, negatively paint around that branch, and I'm painting between the leaves. So when I go around these stencils, I go from the leaf out, because if I go like this, it's going to push color underneath it. So always try to go out like this. And then I think what I'll do is go off the page over here. So now we've got kind of a nice rhythmical pattern running through here, but I want to get a little darker. And I think what I'll do is come in with my permanent magenta. Seems I don't have any French ultramarine right now. And I'm gonna do some connecting with the permanent magenta. So I'm gonna bump into the grapes, go from the grapes to the edge, bump into the tape, bump into the leaf, bump into the tape. And maybe I will go up here, bump into that edge. And I might get even darker. Don't be afraid to go a little darker, because what's going to happen is it's going to dry so much lighter. So push it as far as you can. So now we've got the purples moving. Let's pull it down here, connect with these grapes, go around here. Maybe this is the shape of a leaf in the background. Bumping into the tape here. Coming through here, bumping into the grapes. So we're connecting everything, leaves to grapes to tape, the whole thing. Just run your eye throughout the picture, top of the leaves. And see, I don't want to kill all the blue. I want some blue, some light, and then this purple pattern. Well, that looks pretty good. To add just a little bit more of a textural look, and to also do some of the tendrils that are hanging down, I'm going to cut off a little bit of this medical gauze, and I'll enclose some of this with the video, so you can try it yourself. And what I want to do is I want to create some interesting textural things happening. So I don't want this to look like a piece of gauze. I want it to be linear shapes. So I'm going to simply lay this in here and stretch it out into an interesting pattern. And it can go over the top of the leaves, it can even go over some of the grapes. But the important thing is you have to seed it now. See, when I paint on top of this, then it will become these lines. I think I'll go back into this lovely blue. So this is just going to create some nice little lines. I'll cut another little hunk here. And maybe I'll use this. What I do, I think this makes a nice connecting thing. So if I just set it on here, and pull it across. So it just becomes a nice little connecting unit. I always wonder if it's worth it, but I don't know. I kind of like it. If you're not into this, just forget it. But it has to be seated. So I'm going to put a little color on it. Same color that's under it, basically. And what happens is the gauze absorbs this color. It's just a cotton gauze. And then during the drying process, it transfers that color. Now this is really cool. I'm going to take these colors, and I'm going to get this gauze really soaked with color. And I'm going to twist this around, and this is going to become a tendril. And tendrils are weird. They're not perfect. They're not like little corkscrews. So now we have a little tendril hanging down. And sometimes I'll just simply gather up some of this extra gauze, put it into my palette here, get it all juiced up. Let me get even a little more color. That was pretty weak color. Huh. Now we're cooking. We'll twist this up. And we'll add a few more tendrils hanging down here. So I know that seems a little hokey, but it does add a nice little touch. So I'm just going to stretch a little bit more gauze here, and then I'm going to put a little salt on. This is the perfect place, perfect time to put the salt. The salt should go on just when the glisten is starting to leave. So I'm just going to add just a little bit of salt in some of these light areas. I don't like to put the salt into the real dark shapes. I just like a little transition of the soft breaking up in the light areas. So I just threw a little salt in there, and then we get to come back and it's going to be Christmas morning. Okay, this is the fun part. This is like Christmas morning here. So we'll just completely unveil all this. And you can see the gauze, maybe you can't, but the gauze did make some very nice little textural effects. The tendrils I was hoping for, didn't work out too well. Let's see what's under the leaves. Ooh, nice contrast. Hey, I'm happy with that. That leaf must have blown off. There. Well, this is kind of cool. Look what happened. The manganese seeped under and gave us a very nice, like an outline. Oh my. Well, that worked quite well, I'd say. And then by taking one of my palette knives, I can, just like scaling a fish here, scrape off all these circles. Be sure you get them all. I've had occasions where a few of these got framed up, literally framed up. So we'll push those aside. So this is now like our underpainting. It's a raw piece of work that needs a lot more finishing, a lot more balancing of the values to make it work. And I'm also going to take off the tape to see what kind of little surprises we have there. I see we have a little surprise here. Whenever you have tape overlapping, I should have burnished that too, because that's where it's going to leak. And I see I painted out beyond here. Aha, now we have to get creative. We have an interesting little shape here that we have to deal with. Let's peel this off. Yep, that looks okay. There we go. Oh, it's nice to see those back to the white. So now it's time to take out our pencil and maybe think again about if we want to do a little bit more drawing. I think possibly coming in here with some more, I could even take one of these small leaves, put some paint on it and restamp it, which I think I will. I think a leaf coming into this area would be nice. And then where this branch is meandering through, I'm going to come up here and draw that in. So it'll come across here. It's coming out over here. And here it is over here again, coming out. And maybe this will branch off again. And now I'm ready to think about adding some grapes. Now these grapes were formed, and they're just the ghost of the grape that's left. These were formed by the wax paper. But out here, I'm actually going to get some of these colors juiced up here. We have some of the pink, quinacridone, rose, alizarin crimson. So I can use this is the cork. I think it's very appropriate. This is the cork off the wine bottle. And I'm just going to go ahead and make some circles here that are going to turn into grapes. It's about the same size as these. It works out very well. So we'll just have now some grapes that are in the positive. This is going to be a positive shape next to the white of the background. Let's get some variation going here. I'm going to get some of the magenta, a little more red in that. We'll keep them a nice bright color. But let's vary the color. And I think I'll come in with a brush and vary it even more. Let's take a little bit of that manganese blue. It's not a real powerful color, but it is a beautiful color. Let's blue that up a bit. That cork has got an interesting little white, leaves little white shapes. I like that. Like a built-in highlighter. Pretty nice. Add a few stems here. Very nice. Well, I could just start stamping and going crazy, but you get the idea. Now I also can do a stamp. This is just a little eraser, and if I want to, I can put some paint on this and stamp a few of these. See, a little bit smaller ones. Just simply put the paint on, stamp it. This is too much fun. And so what I'm going to do is out here where we're into the positive shape, I'm going to wet it first, just with some clean water. Clean. So over here I'm going to wet the shape, bumping into the leaf, so I'll go around that. Okay, now just this much is wet. And generally I like to make this in kind of a burnt orange. This is my quinacridone burnt orange. And I'm going to add just a little bit of the pink to it to warm it up. So I'm going to drop that color in along the edge here and let it roll up. This is the reason I wet it first, because I want it to roll. And this way you still save a little light in there and you get the look of the highlight. See, now it looks round. If you paint on dry paper, everything looks flat. So it's very important to make this look round. So I'm coming in a little bit from each side, letting it roll in. And then I'm going to come in with some magenta to make it a little deeper along the edge. And see, this is a designer painting. So this probably isn't the actual color, but it looks nice with the painting. So we're just going to make it match the painting here. So now we have that. Now as it goes into this area, I'm just going to let this edge melt out. And now what I want to do is I want to make this light against dark, because this is dark against light. So now if I come out here and make this dark, see how that's going to pop out that branch? Now I'm bumping into a grape, so I'm going to paint around the grape, pop that out. As I move over here, I'm going to go around the grape again, bump into that. And I might even get just a little bit darker there. I'll add a little blue to that too. So I'm just adding a little manganese. cooling it off a bit. Now let's go to the other side. It's a beautiful light area, but I need a contrast. So now I'm going to come in here with my purple and bump into this side. But see, now we have two hard edges. This one defining this, and this edge, which is bumping into that light area. So I'm going to wet my brush. Starting out here in this wet area, I'm going to come in and soften this edge so that it's totally lost. So see, we've managed to pop this out, but we've also lost the edge. Now we got all these other little hard edges to deal with too. So we've managed to save some of that nice light area, but we've also managed to pop that out. Now here we have one leaf in front of the other leaf. So here's a case where we're going to want to make this leaf look like it's coming forward and this one look like it's going back. So I'm going to take, we've got these nice greens here that we got from the manganese blue. So I'm going to take a little yellow, mix it in with the manganese, and I'm just going to try to figure out, maybe I'll just put blue down there, because the blue, when it goes over the yellow, will turn into a green. So now what we've done is we've made one of these leaves darker than the other. So now this is coming forward and this is going back, and then we're just going to lose the edges here so it's soft. See, that was easy. And you can just keep going darker and darker until you're comfortable with it. I'm going to go into, I grabbed another palette now because I wanted some ultramarine blue. And then I'm going to put a little bit of magenta in there, but I'm basically going to keep this on the cool side. And what I want is I want this particular color cool. I just think that would be nice, cool versus warm. So we're just going to do a little interesting wrap around here with this cooler color, crossing over here, but we'll leave it light against dark, dark against light. Always finding those opportunities to make those changes. And then when you do have that change, you just have to soften it with water so that it doesn't become too stylistic. There, that's looking kind of nice. We might even have to add a few more down here. Here we are, it's the next day. So it's always good to look at your painting with fresh eyes. So as I'm looking now, I see some things are working quite well. My favorite part so far is the transition here where we have the light against dark, and out here the dark against light. And I did work on carrying the branch through. And one of the things I felt would be a nice addition would be to do these twisty-turny interlocking vines. So I did add another vine here with even smaller shapes. And then I added some grapes up here coming in just to break up that white space. Then I thought some twisty-turny wrapping things here with a few grapes hanging down here would be good. And if you'll notice in here now, I did start developing the dark pattern through here. So the dark pattern kind of rolls through here, and now it needs more development here, and I saved that to share with you. So I'm going to be taking the same colors. We're looking at the permanent magenta, and I found my French ultramarine blue. Did a little research. It was in the bottom of some bag. So just coming in with a combination of a little bit of ultramarine and a little bit of permanent magenta. We're going to do some negative painting now. This is going to turn into a grape. So obviously I'm painting around that shape. And then I'm bumping into what's going to be the leaf shape, and then the stem holding the leaf shape. So each time I do this, it's going to pop out the contrast. And I did draw these with a pencil because I'm not necessarily one of these negative painters that can do all this intuitively. I'm just a lot more comfortable if I can have a little drawing to guide me. Now as I move along here, I'm going to get warmer. I might even go into some pink. So I'm going to warm this up a bit. See, I am moving into an area that's much warmer. So what we need to do now is to develop these grapes by negatively painting in the grapes and the shapes in between. So let's start with this area up here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and generate some grapes that are behind. So it could be easier if you just start drawing in some of the grapes that are already here in the ghost-like image. And now if there was another grape behind here, it would go around here and here. Now if there's another grape behind here, you'd be able to see it like that. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to take and mix up a grape-like color. Now, I think I'll keep it kind of warm. We're just going to paint the grapes that are behind the ones that are here. So see, now there's a grape in behind, in the shadow. Here's that other one I drew. There'd be a little grape, a little corner of a grape right here. And what I don't want you to do is start filling in all this. You have to think of it in terms of a grape. Here's a grape. If it were complete, it would go around like this. So you're only going to paint that little bit right there. Now you've just painted another grape. So far we've painted a grape here, here, and here. If there's another grape here, it would go from here, around this grape, over here, over here. See, there's another grape. So that's the best way to start, just simply painting these individual grapes that are in the background. Then when you bump into something like a twining branch, the edge of another grape, the edge of the vine, you bump into all those, that's negative painting. I want to evaluate my leaves. Am I happy with those leaves? Are they looking the best they possibly can? And as I look at this leaf right here, I think this is fabulous. It's got that great green outline. It's got a little blush of that orange, the bright yellow, the golden yellows. That one worked out good. And this one did. This is okay. But you know what? You don't have to limit yourself to what's happening here. If you want to increase the color, darken it, lighten it, brighten it, you can. So this is the leaf I added in your absence, and it looks different than all the other leaves because I made it green. Yellow, of course, wouldn't have been a good contrast against the white, so I made it green. But now I want it to have more of a golden yellow color. So here's all I have to do. Because we're working with a transparent watercolor, all I need to do is come in and glaze in whatever color I want. So this is a little Windsor yellow. I'm also going to put in some of this golden color. And I'm going to make the leaf look like it belongs to the rest of them here. These were the colors I originally used when I did the underpainting for those other leaves. A glaze is when you put a transparent color over the top of a dry surface. That's what we're doing. The surface is dry. I'm just adding a little. And I'm even going to add a little bit of that orange. That was the Windsor orange I added. So you always have to evaluate your painting. What does this painting need so it has good balance, contrasting values, nice movement, you know, big shapes, little shapes. Oh, I do like that better. That just feels a lot more comfortable. I could even add just a little hint of that orangey color. There we go. Now we're cooking. Now it feels like it's part of the painting. This leaf over here, because it's in a light area, we could actually make it darker. So I could go into some of my Antwerp, or I could take French ultramarine, which seems to be the blue I've been using, and add a little yellow to it. And if I want to, I can make this leaf a little bit darker as a contrast, particularly over here in the light area. So by adding a little darker value, then I'm going to wet my brush and just kind of pull that in there. I don't want to just completely paint the leaf. That would not be good. But I'll just go a hair darker now on the edges. See, these were made by an actual stamp, so we don't want to lose all that beautiful look. But it would be nice just to have a little more contrast. There, that was easy. So now we have dark against light, light against dark, and so on. Well, in your absence, I did go in and do just a little bit more working on the grapes. Actually, it still has a little more that needs to be done. Okay, for my last death-defying act, I'm going to share with you another, this is a wonderful trick, and I use it for a lot of different reasons, but it's another form of stenciling. So this is just the kind of paper that runs through a photocopier, and it's called transparency film. And I'm going to take a pen. This is the pen I use when I'm doing on-location painting. So any kind of pen that will write on plastic. And what I want to do is I want to take an exact copy of the grape that I'm using. And it seems like once you start working with the grape shape, you pretty much stick with it. So my grapes are pretty much consistently this shape right here. So now I'm going to take a scissors and I'm going to go in here and cut out this grape. And as I put this grape down, what I can do now is simply take a sponge. This is a cosmetic sponge. There's no oils or lotions in it. We're going to squeeze it out, make sure that it's clean. No surprises. And now I'm thinking about the light hitting this. So as I come in here, look at how nice that is, and lift away that back to the white of the paper. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go around and I'm going to capture the light as it's hitting a number of these grapes. And it really pulls, oh, I just love that. It pulls back the light and it really captures the light. Keep you all awake too. I don't know why it's so noisy. Now let's say you decide to add a grape that wasn't there earlier. I'll go up in this corner here and I can add another grape here if I want. So this is a grape going behind. How about another grape over here? Another thing that I think is a great idea, and that is the use of webbing spray. Now the webbing spray is available places like Michael's, and what it does is it comes out like a string. I always turn it over to test it first. And you never know where it's going to go. It could go just about anywhere. But you can see it gives these squiggly, wonderful free lines. And to me, this is just a perfect complement to the freedom that's in here. So I'm just going to gently stay back, give it a little bit of a random line. I always say this is kind of a spray and pray deal. I think a little bit more up here would be nice. Oh, perfect. Now something I forgot to share with you, and this is important. If you get too close with this spray, look at what happens. It kind of looks like the old Palmer method back in grade school days. So always stay back far enough, just a little gentle spray like that, and you can get this wonderful, casual, random line. So we're completed now with this lesson, and we'll have to take a look at it in a mat, see how it looks. I've met my goals quite well. Most pleased with the dark pattern that's lacing its way through, and I'm also very pleased with the light pattern that is still evident. And I think there's a nice balance between the areas that are within the structure and then the ones that are out in the white. So I hope things go well for you. I've named this lesson Grape Expectations. And very few people have the grapes of wrath when they do it, so I hope things go well for you. The second lesson is on painting sea turtles. They're an endangered species right now, and it's a lesson that I've enjoyed sharing with all ages. And the feeling of underwater, the feeling of light on the subject, it's painted almost completely wet into wet. So there's a lot of good techniques here that will lend itself to painting many subjects, not just sea turtles. And this is the sea turtle that I painted in the lesson. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, now I'm not going to wet the back of the paper because whenever I have masking, I don't think it's safe to wet the back of the paper. So I'm only going to wet the front. And the entire thing, I'm not just wetting the turtle, I'm wetting the entire thing really, really wet. And each of our washes are going to be wet with the exception of one. So this is a real fun project because you're going to learn a lot about wet into wet watercolor. I'm going to work with my nice big round brush here. And what I want to do is work light to dark. And I'm only going to be concerned with painting the turtle, and I'm going to expect these little oozles to happen where I left the little minuscule openings. And the reason I did that is because when you're looking at an object underwater, you get a refracted light look. And things get bent and what they call refracted. So hopefully some of those seeping colors will give us a nice feeling of that. Now I want to have the lightest light happening up here. Her shell is segmented into 13 shapes. And of course this has got a lot of symbolism, and depending on the different cultures. I talked to a gal, a Native American gal, and she said they revere the turtle, and that the 13 segments coincides with the 13 moons and the 13 cycles that a woman has throughout a year. So there's all kinds of symbolism in the turtle. That's quite interesting. So I'm just going to touch here with my brightest yellow, just because I want to get some nice fresh color here, and a little touch over here. And then I'm going to work my way around the palette here. This happens to be my quinacridone gold. And to accent the various segments on the turtle, I'm going to paint each segment separately. So instead of brushing the color across like this, I'm going to drop it in sections. I think that will make it look more like the sections of the turtle. So we'll get a little gold up here. I'm going to keep his neck kind of light, so I don't want to get too much color in there. I do want to get some nice warm, this nice golden color in his arm. So I don't want to cover up all the yellow I put down, I just want to add a little extra color. Now most of these turtles are green, so by going into the yellows, when I come in later with the blues, the turtle will turn green. Now this is quinacridone burnt orange. Lovely, lovely color. It's a color I use now in place of my burnt. So again, I'm going to add this into each section in a separate area from the gold. And I think I'll pull this right around a bit here. And you're starting now to see some of these areas that are seeping out. That's pretty fun. I think I'll leave it a little lighter back here. So later when I put a dark wash, this edge will be light against the dark, and this will be dark against the light. And I think I'll give just a little hint of this color coming into that very prominent jaw there. And let's repeat some of this color again on the other arm. Wow. Now this combination of quinacridone burnt orange, when you mix it with the complement over here, ultramarine blue, you get a green. See the green? It's very olivey green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a nice clean brush. And I'm going to come in with just some pure, here's our olivey green. I'm going to come in with some pure Antwerp blue. And if I want to, see, I can put even a little more of this quinacridone burnt orange in here. Ooh, see, that's pretty. A little more blue. This will give you an idea of the beautiful blue-green, excuse me, that we can get. So now I'm going to come in with my pure Antwerp, and I'm going to select areas where I want to add this. Again, I'm going to put it on the shell here. In each segment. I like that idea. So notice now I'm touching each segment on this one side and letting it roll over. And now we're starting to get a green turtle. That's good. Give him a blue undercarriage here. And I wanted to have a little bit of shadow coming around here. So I'm just going to think about the roundness of the neck. Put a little bit of shadow there. Cool off his beak a bit. And then we'll just run a little of this on the arms and we're practically done. So you can see what I meant. It doesn't take very long to do this. So I try real hard not to lose all the lights. You can see there's still some pure white left in some of these segments. There's some pure white in here. Now the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get just a little bit darker and I'm going to go into a deeper blue. I'm going to try some French ultramarine because they're these little reptilian shapes here are actually quite dark. So I'm going to make, and his eye is dark too, I'm going to give him a blue eye for now. And then you can see where I left these little holes and the color seeped out. So this hopefully is going to give us that nice refracted look when we come in later and add the water. So now we'll set this aside and we'll be back to put wash number 2 on. Well, this is completely dry now and we're ready to put the second wash on. One of the things I want to caution you about is because there's masking on here, you don't ever want to hold the hairdryer on there and actually heat up the masking and possibly push it into the surface of the paper. So be sure that you're always moving the hairdryer if you do accelerate the drying that way. Now we're going to do a second wash, and one of the real secrets of this particular lesson is working on arches paper. When you re-wet, look at that, when you re-wet over the color on arches paper, it does not reactivate that color. Now this isn't true of other papers like, oh, say Winsor Newton or Lana Carell or Kilimanjaro. Some of those papers have a different makeup, and when you wet over them like this, they actually activate the color. But look at this, we're perfectly safe, nothing's moving. We still have the masking on to protect all those beautiful white lines. So what we're going to do next is we're going to try to paint a feeling of light coming into the water. What I want to do is I want to leave some white coming through and some darks. I'm going to start with just a little bit of yellow. Now I don't usually have yellow, you don't always see yellow in water, but see, the yellow we'll interpret as green when it mixes later with the blue. So I'm just going to create kind of a rhythm here of some of this color moving through. It's not very bright. I don't want too much yellow. You notice I'm doing a directional movement like this. He's basically going this way, so I'm creating a cruciform composition complementing that. Now I'm going to come in with some color. Ooh, this is my Antwerp. Now when I come with the Antwerp, when I get to the edge here, I'm going to stop. See? So I'm going to go there, around here, up here, maybe over here. So I'm going to start creating some patterns of movement in the water. But I'm not going to paint on the turtle. I'm just painting where the water is. So where it comes down here, we'll go next to the turtle, but then we'll just go off the page. And notice how I left a pattern of white here. That's good. Do that. Leave some whites too. And maybe we'll have some of this color kind of swirling over here. Coming down. Now I'm going to go in a lot of the blues on my palette. This happens to be a little cobalt here. Perfect primary blue. And again, I'm putting it on top of some of that Antwerp, next to some of the yellow. But whenever I get to the turtle, I stop and go around it. Sometimes I'm using the brush very narrow, just this way. Other times I flatten the brush out so I can get a wider stroke. So we're looking for as much variety as we can possibly get here without turning it into a bunch of stripes. I've got a little blue coming down here. See, when it goes over the orange, it will gray out. I'm still working with my cobalt blue. And you know, this is almost starting to feel a little dry here. I'm going to take my mister. Remember, I only wet it on one side, so it's going to dry quickly. So I'm saving whites up here. I've got a few whites kind of lacing their way through. Next thing I want to do now, I'm going to move into my French ultramarine blue. This is a very warm blue. It has a lot of red in it, a pinky red actually. So there we are, weaving that through, and I want to go right off the edge of the paper too. So I'm putting this on top of the Antwerp, next to the Antwerp, next to the cobalt. Just keep moving it around. One color I don't recommend using is indigo blue. If you have indigo blue on your palette, I wouldn't use that color. It doesn't move. It's the strangest color. So I'm going to put his rear end underwater here. Oh, I really like the yellow. I think I might add just a little yellow over in here. Throw a little more yellow in. Now, all kinds of strange things are in that water. I might even put a little warm color in there. I'm adding just a little bit of alizarin here. And when you put, of course, alizarin and French ultramarine together, you're going to get a nice dark purple. So I want to create some drama in this water too. So I'm going to put this in now as my darkest dark. And I'm especially going to concentrate it over here under his belly. Well, that's pretty dramatic. I think it's time to quit. So I'm going to let these colors kind of roll back and forth a bit. I see I have a big gob of color up here. So I'm going to let them widen out a bit this way, so they're kind of more interesting. And we'll let them go this way. Got a little color that ran into my face. Clean up his nose a bit. Now when this sets up just a little bit more, I'm going to come in with my salt, and I'm going to add the salt only where I have these white shapes. So I'm going to pretend that this is a little bit drier, and I would just simply stroke a little salt in a directional movement, moving through some of these light shapes. And that's going to give us some nice little bubbles. The other thing you can do is you can just wet your fingers and do this. And that gives you a little breakup. So you take the first layer of water off, and you just simply flick it on. So anything that'll make him look underwater. Now right now he's really coming forward, the water's going back. The next wash we're going to paint only the turtle. The wash after that we're going to take all the masking off and sink them. Okay, we're ready to begin the third wash on the turtle. Now I just came up with this whole formalized sequence of how to paint the turtle here and have the most success. And one of the things I've noticed is when you paint the turtle, and you saw me put a lot of color on here, what happens is so much of it oozes out that it dries quite wimped out. So I'm going to only wet the turtle this time. So if you recall, I started with my really fresh yellow. This is a little Windsor yellow, and I'm just going to kind of key up. You can hardly see anything happening here. And he is a green turtle, so I'm just going to green him up a bit down here. And then I'm going to go into my gold, quinacridone gold. Lovely, lovely color. And I'm going to kind of put it where I had it before. And remember how I painted these in segments? Just makes it a lot more interesting. And then I'm going to go into, now these are the same colors, same sequence I did before, warm to cool, light to dark. So now this is my quinacridone burnt orange. And some of the turtles are very orangey. Now if I wanted to, I could make this turtle a lot oranger, and it would be right in keeping with the way they are. So I might just do that. I think I might just give them a little bit more of an orange, burnt orange color here. A little bit of that color would be, of course, underneath here. And then through here. So I decided to warm the turtle up. I was just noticing how cool my water is. And it would be nice to have a little bit warmer turtle here. So we'll put a little more over here on his other arm. This is fun. I've actually had opportunities to look at these in the Monterey Aquarium. Ooh, that was exciting. I might even warm up his beak a little bit. A little bit under his chin here. So because he's wet, all the edges stay soft, and this is important. And I still tried not to lose these very white, light colors in here. So then the very last thing I'm going to do now is take some French ultramarine blue, because I want some of these spots around his face to become darker. His eye is going to be much darker. I'll actually paint that eye later when the whole thing is done. And I outlined this whole mouth with the masking, so I'm able to paint it without having too much color run. So this will be just my last little touch of dark here. And I wanted this arm to get particularly dark here, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of that blue there. See, I'm going to leave it light here, light, so it'll go dark to light, kind of like that. Just a hair darker under here and under here. So there, now we're really, our turtle's really keyed up. The color's looking a little better. We'll let that dry and we'll come back. And the last wash is the best. Everything's coming off. When I come back, I will have removed all the masking, and then we're going to put them underwater. Okay, we are ready to begin our final wash. And this is the exciting part that actually puts him underwater. I mean, if you look at him right now, or her, it almost looks like a her with that fancy little lip line there. One of the things that is striking is that all of the whites are the same intensity of white. So what we want to do now is we want to start spotlighting where the light is hitting on the animal. And then other parts we're going to pull this color right over the top, and that will give us this wonderful spotlight effect. One of the things I don't want to happen is I really don't want to put his head underwater. I don't mind putting part of this underwater, but I don't want to put the whole thing underwater. And I've actually had people paint beautiful turtles, and then when they sink them, they sunk them too much. I mean, they didn't leave any light left on the turtle. So please try to design in some light. Your turtle has to be very dry. During the time we were away, I dried this very well with the hair dryer. So now what I'm doing is I'm simply wetting the entire piece over everything. Nothing's protected. I also had a lady one time who couldn't get her turtle to sink. I went over to look and she forgot to take her mask off. So you have to take off the masking. And now we're ready to put this little rascal underwater. First thing I'm going to do is go to the colors that we did originally. We did some cobalt blue. So I'm going to mix up a little cobalt here. And where I see the cobalt, I'm going to put that down. Only this time, I'm going to go right over the top of the turtle. So I don't want to create too many new shapes. I just want to put the turtle himself, herself, underwater. So see there, you can see where we put that tip underwater, and we left a spotlight right in here. Maybe I'll put this underwater too. And I'm going to put his underbelly underwater. Okay, let's create a little drama here. Let's come in and put half of his face underwater. So now everything on this side of the turtle is underwater. Let's pull just a little bit of this over here. You can see already how we're really capturing now the light through here. Over here I see some lovely kind of purple tones, so I'm going to go into my French ultramarine blue, add just a little touch of a pink to it, warm it up, and try to repeat that color. You can see it needs to be a little bit pinker. Better. So now this time, let's pull that color right up over the top of the turtle. It's kind of scary, but look at the difference. He's underwater. I love it. His tail here is in kind of soft blue, maybe closer to cobalt. So let's put the cobalt over part of that. And let's pull this same purpley color here over the tip part of it. So it's light here, this is underwater, this has all got the light on it. So I may just pull one more stroke through there and we're done. I think I'm just going to use cobalt. It's such a nice soft color. So I'm going to pull a little cobalt through here. And just a little bit of purple in it too. So there, now we've got the spotlight. If you squint, you can see the light is here, here on the tip, coming around here, and at 2 points on his arm. That's it. We've got that little rascal underwater. And before we close, I just wanted to mention, don't just limit yourself to sea turtles, although that's my main interest right now. But there's also fun objects like sea horses. This is not a completed painting, but you can see they have interesting patterns that can be masked. You can do some underwater playful things. Another subject that is truly an exciting subject is the jellyfish. I was privileged to see this incredible display of jellyfish at the Monterey Aquarium. Very incredible. And it's the same kind of idea. I did mask the tentacles, and then I just put these washes down. So it's kind of a similar thing. And I just hope you enjoy this underwater theme. Here's how he looks in a mat. Really does make a difference. Well, I hope you enjoy my favorite lessons. Thank you.